What's up, my NABUers? We're going to take a look at Cloud CP/M today. It's going to be a short little video. I made some changes to the BIOS, and I'll cover that. But I also want to show you something really neat that's been on the Cloud CP/M for a while, and we're going to take a little look at it today. So let's get this guy booted up. So you'll notice, first off, that this is inverted up here. So this is the CP/M, the drive status, things like that. And then we have some information here. We have the help tutorial, which we talked about before, but we also have this new option here called summary. So summary, I'll cover that in a second because I don't want the screen to go away. So I want to cover each of the steps. Then we have the available RAM, which of course we know from previous versions, and then emulation mode. So there is two emulation modes that were popular back in the day of CP/M. That was VT52 and ADM3a. And I had the hardest time trying to find the escape codes for ADM3a. Oh my gosh, was that ever a difficult thing to do? I'll cover that in a second here. So let's take a look at the summary. So this is a drive summary, which is going to display to you what is on the included cloud drives, and also explain to you that B drive is always experimental, so it's always stuff I'm changing. So right now and I'll update it as the drive gets updated, but that's what's on there right now. And then C drive is your personal drive. So you can access C drive and it'll be empty and you can do whatever you want on it, and we will never erase it. Or we as in I, will never erase it from the cloud. Okay, and so back onto A drive. The other thing that you saw there was the VT emulation. So let's take a look at that. And you can change emulation by typing in mode. So the first thing it's going to do is display us what emulation mode we're currently in, and then explain to us how we can change the VT emulation mode. So if you were to run telnet, you'll notice that it's going to change the emulation mode to VT52. And then when you exit telnet, which is, I don't know if I can do that with my hands here, let me, control square bracket, there we go. Then it's going to restore your previous setting for the emulation mode. So if I add extra emulation modes as we go on, programs can update the emulation mode. So NABU lib has a variable that's mapped to a memory location, which is the current emulation mode. And just to give you a quick update on what I had to do to get to work is I assembled this from various documents on the internet. It was difficult to be able to scrounge all this up. ADM3 is just poorly documented, and also because it was a physical hardware device, right? The ADM was an actual dumb terminal. It wasn't so much emulation type as it was a physical thing. So when you search for ADM, you end up finding all information about the physical thing. Now, I did come across this one document here called ADM3a, and it talks about what it looked like. And again, this was very popular back in the days of CP/M, ADM. And if you're a VI user, ADM is actually the originator of the HJKL keys for cursor. So that was kind of interesting to come across. So as I went down, I discovered a few different things inside this document, such as the different control codes to cause the screen to do different things, beeps, all that kind of stuff. And it also happened to have in here too, something too I didn't know about, which is a G mode. So I was able to assemble this, and I found out that VT52 and ADM have some cross commands that do different things. We could actually take a quick little look at that by loading up the BIOS C file. And let's take a look at our VT emulation, and here we go here. So you can see where it's going to say emulation mode, something like this. So a Y for this is 0 means ADM. So a Y for ADM is clear to the end of the screen. And for VT, it is position the cursor. So position the cursor requires additional arguments. So that was a difficult one. So that's one of the main reasons why I had to add an emulation mode setting inside of CPM. Okay, so the thing that I'm really excited to show you, and I'm sure you're excited to see as well, is SamaruX, which is the Unix-like shell that runs in CPM on the NABU. This is going to be fantastic. So first off, jump over to NABU.ca, click on the Cloud CPM page, scroll down until you get to the drive listings here. There we go. So we can see what the A drive is, and you'll see here under user area 0, sx2.com with Unix-like shell. So if we click on this manual button here, there we go. So we have the manual for the Unix-like shell, and you can scroll through this because I think it's a very good read, but you're going to see all the different commands that are available, such as there's terminal variable types, so we can specify our term. We have directories. There's, well, this is neat too. We're going to have to probably do this, is set our term type to VT52 because it doesn't support ADM3. And what else do we have in here? We have alias. Like, this is fully equipped. This is awesome. chmod. Wow, this is going to be so much neat. So I don't know if we'll have time to play with all these different commands, but this is going to be a lot of fun. So let's take a little look at it here. So under user area 0, the first thing we want to do is switch over to VT52 mode. And let's do a dir, find our binary that we're going to run, sx2.com. I have to say I'm so happy that I inverted the characters up there, so they're much more visible. It reminds you when there's disk activity outside of just watching the light on the front of the NABU. Okay, here we are. So Mr., I'm not going to try to butcher his first name, but I will call him Mr. Garcia. So Garcia has created SamaruX, and we're running in CPM 2.2. It's got 45 built-in commands. We can type in man to get a list of all of the commands that are available. And to see one of the manual pages for a command, for example, let's do cp. Just type in man cp and you will get a crazy load as it parses the file and finds the information and displays it to you. Okay, so the first thing I think we're going to need to do is, if we're going to run any commands that are going to require text formatting, is we want to set up our term. So let's export our term to be VT52. Oh, okay, so I found out export doesn't exist. However, we do have env. So the example here, env, the value, the variable name and the value. So let's do that. env term VT52. Nice. So now we should be able to echo term. Oh, that's great. Okay, let's test and see if our terminal emulation works. So let's type in clear to clear the console. Nice. Oh, look at that. It seems like we have a df command too to print free disk space. Let's try that out. Oh, right on. Oh, this is going to be really wild. So it has a CPM command, so we can actually execute CPM commands from SamaruX as well. Let's give it a shot. CPM dir. Huh. Okay, so we didn't recover back into SX. That's because it looks like it's trying to run SX without the SX2. So SX2. I perhaps should rename the SX command in the A drive to just SX rather than SX2 so that the CPM command will work. So by the time you guys watch this in the video, you won't have that issue. I think the most useful part of this shell in CPM is going to be copying files. Let's try copying a file and see if it works, first off, between user areas, because that's always the complicated part with CP/M. And after I do this demo with the SamaruX shell, I'll show you what it's like to copy a file using CP/M native between user areas. So let's try that out. So we're going to CD into our A drive area number 0. Let's just make sure it's where we are. Good. Now let's ls our C drive area number 3. Okay, so we can see there's a file there now. So let's CD into C3 and let's delete the file. VT52.com ls, it's gone. Okay, so let's go back to our A drive, area number 0. And we should have a file in here called diskdef.lib. Yeah, I just saw it scroll by up there. Oh, there it is. I always use this as a file for testing things with. So let's just try cp diskdef.lib to our C drive user area 4, which is not the, or let's just say 3, that's when we were just on. We know there's no files there. So it's not the user area we're currently in. We're currently inside of user area 0 on the A drive. So we can see here, it's reading from the A drive, selecting the A drive, reading, writing. So it's copying between A and C here. We can see that. So it is indeed copying the file. Now it's going to take a little bit of time, primarily because CP/M only has 128 byte of buffer for disk activity. So it's only going to be able to copy 128 bytes at a time between the two disks. And there we have it. It's finished. So again, let's just make sure that we're still on our, still on our A drive. There we go. I must have hit a button after I typed in that first command in there. I think I hit symbol, so I probably put some sort of weird character in there that we can't see. So let's get into our, well, it's just ls. Let's try that. ls C3 drive from the A drive. This is wonderful. Okay, so to show you how to copy a file using CP/M shell doing the exact same thing, it's a little bit more complicated. And let me show you how it's done. So we're going to first exit out of SamaruX. So we'd have to go C drive and then type in user 3, and we should already have that file. Let's erase it. Now we can't just copy from pip because pip doesn't exist here, and we can't run pip from the A drive because pip doesn't exist there because we're in user area 3, right? So if we go to A drive, we're going to be in user area 3. So pip is now gone. We have no access to it. So what we have to do is we have to copy pip to our C drive location. So we have to go A drive, user area 0, where pip is. Then we run pip. Now pip is loaded into the TPA memory. So when I hit enter and exit pip, the code for pip is still in memory. It's still in that TPA memory address space. So if I go to the C drive and I switch over to our user area 3, and I type in save, and how many blocks do I want to save is 58, and I want to do save pip.com. So because pip is in memory, I'm actually taking from 0x100 memory location and 58 times 128 byte chunks, which is a page. From that upwards, I'm saving that memory into a file called pip.com because we have pip.com in memory. So there's our pip. So now if I do a dir on our user area 3, there's pip. Now just to make sure we copied enough of the memory, It should run. There, it ran. Okay, so now we want to copy disk def from A drive, user area 0, to this file, to this folder here. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to type in pip, give it our file name, which is going to be disk def.lib. This is our destination file. Now we're going to say equals, because we want to fill that file from another file. And we're going to say A drive disk def.lib, but that's not enough because we now need to put a square bracket and say G0, which means get from area 0, and then we hit enter. And there's our activity. We're done, dir. And we don't have a file because, oh, it's CPM for some reason dropped us into user area 0. I guess because that's the last location it was getting a file from. So it was probably closing the file or reading something in the file, and it left us back in user area 0. So let's go back to user area 3 and then dir, and there is our diskdef.lib. So that's how you copy a file using CPM. So you can see that using SamaruX is such a nice utility because it just works. Now, there are other utilities on here that you'll be able to run, such as nsweep and power. These are other, where's power? Somewhere in here. There it is. It's called PowerShell or something.com. So these are other file utility programs, but again, they're a little more complicated to use. I just prefer to use SX2. So while I was just talking, I just remembered that we are still in VT52. So I wanted to show you something. Make this video a little longer than it needs to be. I'm going to show you how the ADM3 and VT52 differ from each other. So let's jump into our user area. I believe 4 has some CPM games on it. Nope. User area maybe 3. I guess I could have typed in summary on the A drive. That would have told me. There we go. Gorilla is the one I want to run. So if you remember Microsoft Basic Gorilla. Now remember, we're in VT52 mode right now. So I'm going to run Gorilla, and it's going to give us an option for selecting different terminal emulations. Now, it's not going to be able to change the emulation that's the BIOS is using. So by selecting this, this is the program saying, what emulation mode are you currently in? Because changing the emulation mode is something that I added to the NABU BIOS. It doesn't exist in CPM. In fact, it's the first of its kind to be able to do that kind of thing in a BIOS for CPM. So we have to now type in our emulation mode, which is number 1, which is VT52. And we're going to take a look at our game. We'll start it. And there's our Gorilla. There's our other Gorilla. So we're missing something here. Let's Control C out of here. And let's exit. Do I want to exit? Yes, I do. So let's change user area 0. And let's change our mode to mode 0, which is going to be ADM3. And let's go back into user area 3, run a Gorilla. And we will select ADM3.1, which is number 5. And look at that, we have this nice fancy screen. We have some somewhat graphics. Start game. And we have buildings. Isn't that wild? So you may not be 100% surprised why ADM3 versus the VT terminal, why this is working and the VT52 wasn't. So VT52 has an extended character set, ASCII set, that we don't have. We don't have space for it either, because remember, there's no character ROM in the NABU. We have to include the character set in the BIOS. So that will add a bunch of space, like my last video had mentioned. So ADM3 being a little older than VT52, will use inverted white space characters, which is just a full block, right? To be able to draw and do things. So that's one of the advantages to using ADM3. Jump back into our user area 0 and type in summary. We'll see here that we have text editors like WordStar on user area 6. So if we go into user area 6, now that we're in ADM mode, we can run WordStar. So I'm not sure what the default setting is for WordStar, so let's just go into install and make sure that we have ADM configured for it. And we want a normal first time install. Sure, why not? This will install on the current, sure. Now, if you're going to configure WordStar using this model, you're going to want to copy all the files from this folder to your C drive when you're done, because you want to make sure that these changes don't get overridden. Because remember, the A drive will get overridden every time we make a change to it. Okay, so I want to select A for ADM3, and I want to say yes. I don't care about my printer right now. We won't change for that. And I'll say the same for this. We don't care. Yep, don't care about that. We don't care about that. Modifications. No, we don't need to. We don't need to do anything. There we go. Okay, save this configuration. Now, while this saves, I'm not sure if you're also familiar, but in the news of the Internet Adapter the other day, I mentioned that Cloud CPM has experimental LPT printing, list printing off the parallel port. So if we were to print with an actual printer port or printer hooked up, in theory, it should work. I don't have anything to test with, so I'll need you guys to test and get back to me. All right, so it looks like we are in WordStar. Now, I have no idea how to use WordStar. We've got a nice little menu up here, which is nice and convenient. And we got a file selection here, so that's pretty wild. But I'm just gonna hit X to exit our system because this is something that I think somebody who has experience with WordStar will want to play with. Okay, and also don't forget to give the help a run on Cloud CPM if you want to learn a little bit more about it. There's information about what digital research is, what the company is, how it started with Gary Kildall, and I even have information on here about how to copy files, how the CPM system works and how the different levels work and layers and how they all talk to each other. So I think it's a really good tutorial to go through to be able to learn a little bit about Cloud CPM and why it's relevant and why I'm putting so much focus into it. And lastly, before I leave, there's been a little bit of chatter about cables and twisted pair cables for the network adapter, etc. And I have mentioned a few times that running slideshow is a very good test for your cable. And the reason why, which a lot of people I've seen some comments, people say, why should I be running slideshow? It's because it's the most communication intensive app that we have for the NABU to date. So it is constantly downloading information, and that's all it's doing. So if you can run slideshow and let it run, say, overnight and wake up in the morning and see if it's still running, then your cable is rock solid. If it crashes, say 30 minutes in or 40 minutes in or even an hour in, that means you have some issues with your cable. And the solution is to shorten it as much as you can, the cable between the DTEC and the NABU, so the RS422 portion. And that is because the USB adapter can't produce enough current, and there's too much resistance on most of our lines because the cable length is too long. And also, there's another issue, which is you should not be grounding at the NABU and at the DTEC, because then you create what's called a ground loop. And I'll make a longer video about that, I think, in the future, because there's a lot of people who... let me tell you a quick little story before I leave. So in my profession, which, you know, you guys can look me up and find out. I work in some pretty high-tech stuff, and therefore I'm surrounded by some pretty smart people. So I was talking to one of my friends, he's an engineer, electrical engineer, and I mentioned to him, I'm like, you know what? I have these issues with cloud CP/M. I can't seem to run my slideshow for a while. I used my logic analyzer, the baud rate that we have, everything is right dead on. There's something wrong. And he looked at it, he says, that's an RS422, and you're running a serial cable with straight wires and a single little tiny shield. And he's like, no. So he gave me a little quick explanation about, first off, I knew about ground loops, right, making a giant antenna because of voltage references and the difference between the two. But the other thing was the transmit and the receive should each be twisted in twisted pairs. And the other one was the voltages, because generally you'll see with RS422 voltages upwards of 12 volts, 14 volts, and onwards. But we're only dealing with a very small voltage here. So that causes some missing bits here and there, is what we'll say. And there's no handshaking, no data correction to these guys. So that's just the way it is. But we can do a longer video about that probably when I get back home and I'm actually in my lab versus, you know, being here on the beach in the winter, which I don't really have a lot of access to things. So BC quest for tires, right? Anyway, so I will see you guys on the, oh man, okay, I don't know if many Canadians are watching my slideshow, but like, come on, right? Relic, Beachcombers, there's some good stuff in here. I love putting this on and just watching it rock through, I guess, my like childhood, you know? Oh, Cylon. I liked Blade Runner 2049. I thought it was good. You know, the combination of Harrison Ford and the new school guy. I thought it was really good. That previous picture that just showed up, I wonder if anyone knows what that one's from. That's that bird. That is a Canadian cartoon that I grew up with on TV Ontario and TVO. And it was my favorite. My sister and I used to like fight to sit in front of the TV and watch that show every day after dinner. The game I used to play on the Apple II. I used to love this game. I finished it 2 or 3 years ago, finally, one day. And one of the strangest movies I'd ever seen, Brazil. Boy, that was a strange movie. But in high school, it was like one of my favorites. Breakfast Club, of course. Yeah, if you haven't played Brick Battle, my 2023 NABU game. Doctor Who. Okay, this is a good time to say goodbye, and I'll see you guys in the next video.